So in this peer review, this is such an important topic that documentation takes the central stage. Now, before I talk about the documentation and various aspects, I thought I must share with all of you why peer review came about and why there is so much of hula-boo about the entire regulatory structures, and why documentation then takes a critical place in the entire scenario. You will all recall that it all started with the fall of Enron in the United States in 2001-2002. The fall of Enron was, I think, such a shocking experience for the entire economies in the world that they sat back and tried to find out new methods to regulate the whole thing. In United States, consequent to Enron, of course, Sarbanes-Oxley committee was put up, and a new institution was formed in the Securities Exchange Commission with the name of PCAOB, meaning Public Companies Accounting Oversight Board. Why I'm telling you all this? You should be clear that what role has been played by the Indian Institute while facing the attack from all around the country. So in 2002-2003, in the United States, Public Companies Accounting Oversight Board was set up. And to the shock and surprise of everybody, entire powers of the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants were taken away. That means AICPA was stripped of its power to set auditing standards. AICPA was stripped of its power to take disciplinary action. AICPA was stripped of its power to set ethical standards. That means the United States, the largest capitalist democracy on this earth, took away and they believe in the market economy in such a great manner that they took away all the powers of the AICPA and took everything, the government took in its own hand. So that means the US government took away the powers of the accounting profession as back as in 2002. Be it auditing standards, be it ethical standards, or be it disciplinary proceedings. And please do not forget that setting of accounting standards has always been an independent exercise in the United States under the formation of a committee, Financial Accounting Standards Board, since 1970. Following USA, in UK, the Financial Reporting Council was set up, be it in Australia, be it in Singapore, be it in China, throughout the world and throughout the Europe, the powers of the accounting professions were taken away. Surely, the Indian government could not have sat quiet. They set up a committee with the name of Naresh Chandra Committee. They brought out the report. And believe me, I'm sharing, since I was a witness to the whole developments, overnight, I think we worked about, 1 month overnight in the institute. And we brought out this peer review statement and established the peer review board. And believe me, if you read the Naresh Chandra Committee report today, the entire approach of the government was softened down towards the Indian professionals. Because when the peer review board was set up by the institute, let's not forget, it is a self-regulatory measure. And believe me, even today, I believe what can be achieved by self-regulation cannot be achieved by any forced regulation. But things are changing very fast. I do not know, since 2003, in 2020, have we lost control of the things? Or have the things become so bad? Because what we have seen in this country, now coming back to this country, From 2003, when the peer review board is set up, we train our own peer reviewers. There is a situation to the quality review board. From quality review board in 2008 or 9, now we have seen is that now there is a National Financial Reporting Authority, which came into existence on October 1st, 2018, subsequent to the PNB scam. So Companies Act 2013 did contain a lot of changes as far as the auditors are concerned. The most important one was Section 144, wherever the certain services were prohibited. And certain new clauses were added in the reporting format in Section 143. So what I'm trying to tell you is that peer review board is a self-regulatory mechanism. And it was decided at that point of time that we must increase the awareness. We must go to the members and tell them that, Baba, please maintain your working papers in an order so that nobody can question you. And believe me, at that point of time, we used to say that how sensitive it is. I think there are so many elderly professions in this logged in. How shocking it is, how it is so difficult, that how one could imagine that somebody will come to my door, knock at my door and say, I want to enter your office. Please take out all the files. Please tell me about your the client's name. You tell me about the fees, whatever you are charging. You show me the papers, what kind of, it is such a shocking kind of an experience. For a moment's time, it is questioning the integrity of the professional, as if he's not doing any work. So it is a very, very kind of a shocker. So from the peer review board, we'll go and tell people, please understand, this is something in the changing environment. While at the world level, at the global level, the government has taken over the control of the things. Here, the institute is itself is doing the whole thing. And I used to give an anecdote that who shall shave the barber? We used to say, and in fact, it was a Nani Palkiwala who used to say, who shall shave the barber? The barber shall shave the barber only. So we had a statement on peer review, wherein it was clearly written that a chartered accountant shall review the work of a chartered accountant. So a barber shall shave the barber, so the chartered accountant will review the work of a chartered accountant. So that is how this peer review board came into existence. And the whole time has passed by. And today we are looking at the situation from peer review board to quality review board to NFRA. In fact, I think 2 or 3 days ago in Hyderabad branch, they had a program on the form NFRA to be submitted to the NFRA. I'm sure that many of you are quite small-time practitioners. Please don't mind my words. Small-time practitioner means that you're not, your earnings don't into several billions of dollars or this thing. Many of you may not be doing any listed company audit. If you look at the form 2 of NFRA, it sends a chilling sensation in the spine, the kind of details which has to be given to the NFRA. And how the NFRA will take its further role, we are not clear. So my humble appeal to all the members is that it is an institution. I call it as peer reviews, an institutional mechanism. It is an institutional mechanism brought in by your own mother body. Please respect the diktat of your mother body. Try to follow it to the extent possible, because unless if doesn't happen, people talk loose about it outside in the streets, and actually it doesn't augur well for the entire profession. Going forward, I think one very important change has taken place. Post 2014, it has been decided that in case deficiencies are found in the peer review, then in that case can be raised, go to the council, disciplinary committee. Earlier, this provision was not there, since our intention was that to only educate the members, to create awareness amongst the members. And that is how it happens. Having said that, you have to remember that, and while I'm sitting in this whole thing was meant for the entire professional membership. I think now there are 3 layers. One layer will go to NFRA. The large number of auditors will go to NFRA. We are expecting about the people who are auditing the first 5,000, 6,000 companies will go to NFRA. Some middle layer will go to the quality review board. Rest will remain with the peer review board. But slowly and slowly, the legal compulsions would increase. I also appreciate, and in fact, that point we used to discuss, I thought I'll share something with you. It's very difficult for a small practitioner, and see, in these small cities, Vijay is not a small place according to me. People there are rich, and of course they're rich at heart. That tax practice may be dominating practice, but the way the auditing standards are there, in fact, as per the definition of audit standards per se, the auditing standards apply to all kinds of audits, as we will see that how the auditing standards look like to be today. So whether you're doing the tax audit, even whether you are taking up any service of, say, compilation of accounts, the auditing standards are applicable. Unless you are giving some kind of a tax advice, that's a separate matter. There the engagement standards don't come into the picture. But if you're signing on some prospective financial information, you are doing any specialized kind of, say, stock audit kind of an assignment, you are doing tax audit kind of an assignments, everywhere the auditing standards are applicable. It's a bit unfortunate because I used to ask a question to myself at that point of time, that if in 2003 or say auditing standards start becoming mandatory 1995 or 98 onwards, I used to ask a question. Do we mean to say that in 80s and 90s the audits were not conducted up to the mark? They were definitely up to the mark, and they were definitely of the higher order. But over a period of time, somewhere the sanctity must have been lost. And over a period of time, some kind of standard operating procedures had to be built up. And this is where do we see that auditing standards come into play. And I'm sure as all of you are engaged in the auditing field and the way the auditing changes, I'm sure it's not a static discipline. Every day, every third day, every second day, we find some new circular, and even the institute doesn't mind sometimes changing the wholesale, the ethics standards booklet, they will change. Something they will borrow from somewhere, something they will bring from somewhere and say, now members, you have to follow it up. So every day it is changing. So my first observation about the auditors is that please remember, all of you are doing a significant public interest activity. And your discipline is quite a practical one. It is not a static one. Being a practical discipline, I think you have to be live to the changes every day. You have to be very, very active in keeping update about all these things. So I always used to tell my friends that auditors are those professionals who only operate in gray areas. See, there is something white and something black. Anybody can tell it is white and it is black. But if it is a gray area, then a professional has to exercise the judgment. And each professional auditor must be respected for that, giving that judgment on that gray area. And friends, actually this becomes the problem, because in the hindsight, anybody can question the judgment. It's very easy to question the judgment later on, depending upon the different environment and different circumstances. One may like to view the things in a different color, different shade. But auditors are professional and they do operate in gray areas. So I always used to tell my friends that auditors are professional. Professional are people. People make mistakes. So auditors also make mistakes. So don't take them wrong. Baba, give them the respect what they deserve, because they are doing the work in ever-changing environment. And I think the kind of changing environment which I have seen post last 10 years, say 2013 Act, and the way the rules and the way the circulars and way the notifications, or say in the case of even DT or say GST, it is quite a horrible scene. And then state GST and the central GST, sometimes state will issue. So it's quite an unimaginable situation for a professional. So I think people must accept this thing. And I think as an auditor, I think you must keep the first primary thing in your mind, that as a professional, you make judgments. And that is how, based on your own judgment, you take all the decisions. Because even in the documentation at the end of the day, it is your judgment which will work. Please remember, in essay 230 on audit documentation, we have not listed the documents that a permanent file will contain, number one, this annual report, number two, document will be this last year signed balance sheet, number three, it will be the history of the business, number four, this document. In current file, the auditor will file the engagement letter. The current file, the number two document will be from this person. Number three will be the profile number. We in essay 230 on audit documentation have not prescriptive requirements. We have not stated anything that look, you will file this document one, document two, document three. The standard itself tells that it is the judgment of the professional who shall decide what kind of documents to be filed. Lest I forget, I will request the chairman. In fact, this is my humble appeal to all the members, that you should all try to become the reviewers themselves. You should all undergo a peer review training program so that you are an eligible reviewer. It will help you in two ways. One, it will enable you to understand the whole peer review process in a better manner, appreciate it in a better manner, and make you understand that what do you expect from the practice unit. Because as a practice unit, if you go through the manual prepared by the board, of which I was the original contributor in 2002, 2003, we have given that what kind of documents have to be maintained, how that questionnaires has to be filled up. So you can in fact organize one training session that how to fill up the questionnaires. Because normally when the reviewer comes and asks and that questionnaires come in, many of the members run here and there to fill up those questionnaires. I'm sure that we should take up those questionnaires in actual thing, try to fill it up. We can have a mock drill. My friend B.Sekkizhar can do all this very effectively, because you can see that I'm speaking even without a presentation. I'm an old person, so I enjoy my doing it in old way. And in a lighter way, I don't my face to become small on the side screen. And the presentation take the larger space. So there's a personal motive also, don't worry. So the question is that essay 230 itself does not talk, that it does not prescribe number one, number two, number three, it is left to your own judgment. So that is why I always acknowledge the professionals, that we must respect the judgment of a professional. He is a person who is working with full honesty and integrity to do his work. So naturally, let's not disturb him on this. So standards is a principle-based standard. Having said that, I think you will remember that an auditors are professionals. Before I go into the whole scenario and again concentrate on documentation, you need to understand very clearly the structure of these standards. Normally, the standards are quite big. And in fact, the name itself is quite lengthier one. It is known as Quality Control and Engagement Standards. Under the engagement standards, quality control is a separate issue. I'll come to that later. Under the engagement standards, there are 4 varieties are there. First of all, classified under 2 different categories. What we call it the assurance services and then the related services. Under assurance services, there are three kinds of standards are there. Number one, audit standards, review services, assurance, other assurance services. So three kind of standards under the assurance engagements, and one kind of standard related services under the separately. So auditing standards, review services, other assurance engagements. I will first take up the last two. Please understand, in the related services, one of the standard is the compilation of financial information. My hand-folded request to all the members is, first of all, normally speaking, we are not allowed to do the bookkeeping for the client of whom we are doing the audit, statutory or tax audit. But doing compilation of financial information is a common activity, and naturally sometimes what the balance sheet P&L is prepared, and chartered accountants normally put their stamps, everything verified, calculated, and give it to them. Please, for God's sake, standards on related services, as per the structure of the standards, a professional accountant does not give any assurance. So there is no assurance as far as this related services are concerned, but a format of the report should be given as per the standard on related services, that look, Baba, what work we have done, please understand we have done within these constraints, and we are not giving any assurance on this. Please follow the, do the copy paste, do copy paste little bit more carefully, because my heart sinks. In the last 2 years, 3 years, the reporting standards have been changing so fast, and so many new requirements are coming in. And believe me, in fact, in my LinkedIn post, sometime I am writing against the government. Even in last 3 days, last 3 months, 1 month, they've issued so many new requirements for the auditors. So that means they will all go into the auditor's report. Of course, there is one Caro 2020, which pinches my heart. In fact, there is a full webinar which I did for a friend of mine in Delhi. Well, it's too much of requirements, And so standard on related services deals with the engagements on compilation of financial information and the agreed upon process, in which there is no assurances given. Please understand. So you must follow the structure of that report. Please understand, if a practice unit, as a reviewer, I come to your office, I knock at your door. To me, it hurts, that somebody is coming and asking me what kind of work you are doing. I will write down that such and such client I have done the accounting work. He will say, Baba, show me the work. He says, I have not kept any papers. I compiled the accounts and gave it to them. Baba, but once you do the work, you must issue a report to him, report of no assurance, and that must be maintained with you for the posterity if you want to refer it to it. So that is one. So if you look at the structure of the engagement standards, there are standards on auditing, there are standards on review engagements, standard on assurance, which in fact includes the prospective financial information, particularly submitted to the banks for taking certain loans, etc. Please understand, in case of standards on auditing, auditor gives a reasonable assurance. In case of review and other assurance engagements, auditor gives a moderate assurance. In case of related services, there is no assurance. So as a professional accountant, you have to understand that looking at the assignment, you are required to give a kind of an assurance. Reasonable, moderate, and no assurance. And for God's sake, it's so unfortunate that media, even the chairman Nafra, they talk in the public that auditor is not a watchdog, he should be a bloodhound. And of course, the Nihar Jambusari, the president, stated he should not be he should be a sniffing dog. So you should start smelling whether the fraud exists or not. So they want the level of reasonable assurance to the level of absolute assurance. Please understand, I'm 100% clear on this. I've written so many blogs on this that no auditor ever in his life can give the absolute assurance and can held be responsible for detection of all frauds and errors. Let us be very, very clear about it. So, but purpose is to give reasonable assurance, then moderate assurance and no assurance. So friends, my humble request is you must know the kind of service which is being done by you, the kind of work which is being done by you. Your report should be modified. Your report should be accordingly based on the engagement standards, because that exactly would be your defense in future. Say today you give some kind of a certified accounts to the client and which takes it and shows it to somebody else and raises the loans. Tomorrow if something goes wrong, the banker will come and catch you. He will catch you from your neck. The Baba, you signed this account. No, I didn't mean that. I simply said verified and correct. Doesn't make any difference, sir. You should give a clear report that I'm not responsible for this. It is accurate on the basis of this. I've not expressed a new. So you look at the language in the case of related services and other assurance where the moderate assurance is given. Our appeal to entire membership used to be, please, for God's sake, follow the standard, follow the reporting pattern of the standard, so that it will in fact act as a defense in your own favor when tomorrow anybody legal body jumps on you. You have to be also clear, because I think for the attention of the entire team of the branch, CARO 2220 will become applicable now this year onwards, so that next year the report will be given. The kind of provision which have been put into the latest CARO are simply horrendous, according to me. In fact, according to me, no other agency on this earth wants to work and try to find out what wrong is being done by the corporates or the companies. They want to put everything at the shoulder of the auditor. So banker wants the auditor to find out, in case cash credit limit is around 5 crores, whether the document has been submitted to them or to submit to anybody else, whether the evergreening of loans is taken place or not. So these are the horrendous requirement. In fact, we require minimum 3-hour session to discuss the new CARO and its various provision. In fact, all Benami property, how it has been purchased, how it is being listed, all loan and advances, secured, unsecured, greening, evergreening, everything has been put into the new CARO. Agreed that something wrong must have done in this corporate world. It was going on for all years. Doesn't mean that all auditors were wrong. Everything is being done in the wrong. And in any case, our submission was, my submission would be, in fact, I have fought it on various fora also, that once you are prescribing a certain thing, please do prescribe having regard to the size of those firms or not. That they cannot do, but they should have gone by the size of the company, and they said auditors of these companies will be covered, not all of them. But anyway, the unfortunate situation is all accounting standards, all auditing standards, be it CARO, leaving aside CARO, say for some private limited companies having less than 1 crore of borrowing, 1 crore of paid capital, 1 crore of revenues, they are all covered. So it means most of you shall be hit by the CARO 2020 next year, and you have to be very careful, because once anything goes wrong with this company, the banker is going to be come to your door, going to look at it, that how did you sign the audit report, that there is nothing wrong and everything is fine. So please, the work of documentation will acquire a new significance next year onwards, be it peer reviewed or not. But bankers are going to look at the papers. I still remember 7 or 8 years ago, Uday Kotak arguing with me at a great length that the kind of reports which are being submitted by the auditors across the country, So the question is that, and today, in fact, with the way the government has gone since last 6-7 years, and where the artificial intelligence is playing its role, where the 300,000 companies have been written off, we do not know how complex this structure of companies could be, how the shell companies can be, where the entries are being circulated, and how the artificial intelligence is going to check all this. So things shall be safer. I'm sure that you have to take little more precaution, exercise your own judgment, and then take all these measures. So I was talking about the structure of the standards. So the structure of the standard up since I think 2007, 2008 is that engagement standards are classified in those 4 categories. Now I've talked about related, I've talked about other assurance, I have something on the review is also there. So you can follow those standards. Coming to the main standards on auditing, the standards are classified into various series. 200 series, 300 series, 400, 500, 600, 700. Friends, if you don't understand me, please do let me know. I will clarify once again. Under 200 series, there are standards which relate to the principles. Under general principles, I think we have got about 9 standards. I will read out the names little later. And then in the 300 and 400 series, there are standards with relating to the risk assessment. 500 series is relating to the audit evidence. 600 series is related to the work of others. 700 series is with reference to the reporting. 800 series is with reference to specialized assignments. Now see how wonderfully this classification has been done. In series 1, the first series, the basic principles have been laid down. That means how the general structure of the auditing should be there. So there is a 230 documentation, 200 objectives of the audit, 210 about the engagement letter, 220 about the quality control, 240 about the frauds, 250 about, I think, 260 about the deficiencies and communications with the those who are in governance. So general principles have been laid down under the series 200. Series 300 and 400 talk of the risk assessment. Now, please understand, now, after understanding the principles, we say auditor has to carry out the risk assessment of the entity. So this is how these standards have been framed. 300 about planning, 315 about internal control, 320 about materiality, 330 about the auditor's response to the assessed risk, 350 about the evaluating the impact of those things, 401 about the service organizations, and then there is another standard also. So first of all, even auditing as an activity, if you see, first you are required to assess the risk of an entity and then carry out the substantive test. Now in the substantive test, that means we talk about the audit evidence. Series 500 is very, very crucial, where we talk what is audit evidence and special considerations. Then we talk of written representations from the management. Of course, people, that is management representations. So these are more abused than used by many people. This is how it is said. I'll speak about them a little later. Then 600 is about the work of others. That means you are using, say, if there are joint auditors, then you are using the work of the other. There's an internal auditor, 610, using the work of an expert. That is another situation in which the auditor has to see. And then 700 is the reporting standards. 700 about the audit report. 701 is the critical audit, key audit matters. 705, 706, then 720. So number of standards on reporting are there. So a lot of things have to be seen. And let's remember, when I'm talking all this structure of the standard, you have to actually see the documentation in respect of each standard. So this is how we are talking about it. So I'll try to give you the whole review so that you are comfortable with it. If you find it little circuitous or circular, please do let me know. I will further simplify it. Now, once we have looked at these standards, now if you read these standards, if I think as a professional, you must be reading the accounting standard or auditing standard. In 2000, I think 6, we started this exercise, or 2004, we started the exercise. By 2008, we completed the exercise. And you see all the standards names from AAS to SAP to AAS and AAS to SA were all given by me, since I used to be the secretary to the auditing standards board during that time. And during that time, I used to visit the International Federation IAASB meetings, and we used to rewrite these standards. If you look at those standards, you will find that auditing standard is normally, first the introduction is there. then requirements, and then application and explanatory material. Friends, why I'm highlighting this point, there is a method to read this standard. What we have done, requirements is nothing but the standard which has to be followed. But we realized, unlike in accounting standards, in auditing standards, the size, complexity, nature of the entity may vary. We used to give an example, I think in my all sessions, I used to give an example of Reliance versus Nathu Alwai in the gold market of very famous Nathu Alwai. So I used to say, if it is a Nathu Alwai, auditing standards are applicable to him also. And auditing standards are applicable to the Reliance also. But the question is that whether the procedures, techniques which an auditor shall adopt, shall it be the same? Or for an instance, let me, I think, ask it a different question. See, establishing an internal control system, if there are 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 employees, what kind of internal control system I can establish there? Where there are hundreds, thousands of employees, the internal control system will take a different shape. In the case of 10 employees, 20 employees, single, because I may have my audit clients where it may be run by a person himself, he's a sole proprietor. There may be two partners. So elaborate internal control system will not work. Purpose of classification of auditing standards as a requirement and as an explanation was to address to the requirements of the small practitioners, so that requirement is the standard, the standard has to be followed, but to comply with that standard, what application has to be done will be, we used to be quite varying nature for the different kind of institutions. I think I did mark, I think for your benefit, I will just tell you that if you go through essay 315, I think in essay 315, if you look at the paragraph A16, A49, and A50, in fact, A49 will go and talk that, Baba, look, there may be a single owner of the business. What kind of internal controls will be there? And you look at the essay 315, if you read the title of the standard, it explains your duty in such a wonderful manner. Let me read it because I also normally forget the name of the standard. So what is the name of the standard is that identifying and assessing the risk of material misstatements through understanding the entity and its environments. How wonderfully it is worded, the name of the standards. What is the objective of the auditor? Please understand, objective of the auditor is not to detect the frauds. Objective of the auditor is to detect the risk of, is not to detect the material misstatement. He has to detect first the risk of material misstatements. How he will achieve that objective? Through understanding the entity and its environment. Baba, it is not important that entity is doing what kind of a business, but what is the environment of that entity? Now, today, if we see the environment in which, say, all airlines are working, entire hotel industry, the whole environment is under kind of a pressure. In fact, in my blogs, I have been writing very strongly that 2021 is going to be very difficult for all such kind of industry. There will be tendency on the part of the management to show a better picture. So auditor has to be extra careful in this particular case. So the limited point which I was trying to make you was that when I'm reading this standard, I'm looking at the requirement. Requirement is the standard, because we used to use a very, very cliche kind of a statement. Audit is an audit is an audit. Be it the Reliance industry, be it smallest of the smallest trader operating on my left-hand side of the locality, doesn't make any difference. People used to ask me that how these standards can be made applicable for such a small kind of an entrepreneur. We used to tell them, of course, institute should do further work on this. In fact, it should have tried to further guide on this independently on its own. It should have taken out this paragraph from the standard, put it at one place, should have told Baba, when you are applying the audit procedure, if your size of the client is small, the audit can be done in a simple manner. And if there's a small entrepreneur is there, you don't have to carry such kind of different tests. and what is the documentation to be done. This can be done very easily. But what I'm trying to say, if you go to these 2-3 in every standard, so what we at the international level used to say that these standards are having a proportional implication. That means the standard is not applicable in totality like this. Standard is there, but applications can be varied upon. I think I must share one very important thing which happened at that point of time was, it was a reflection on the accounting professions throughout the world, that Australia wanted to incorporate the standards within the Companies Act itself. They said all requirements shall form part of the Companies Act, but all applications shall form part of the guidance material. So this whole exercise was done intentionally with well-known objective, so that professionals can do their job in a better manner and do it in a cost-effective manner. Please understand, and I think that used to be my guiding point, nobody shall pay an extra penny to the auditor. Everybody is looking for the value. How do you show the value? Baba, you tell him that I have to follow so many standards. I have to do so much of documentation. Where do I go? I have to comply all with. So if you prepare your documentation, put it on the table of the client. Baba, this is the work. This is the big file folder which is prepared for you. And this folder keeps on getting bigger, bigger, and bigger. There doesn't seem to be any end. And in fact, that's my again grudge, that the way the size of the audit report is increasing. It's simply fabulous, And I'm sure in 2021, in 2022, we will see the fabulous size of the audit reports. So having said about the structure of the auditing standards, I think I may be wrong. So first of all, I think there are some points you have to remember. Normally, an auditor through the auditing standards gives the reasonable assurance. Through review standards or other assurance, it gives only moderate assurance. In case of related services, it does not give any assurance. Please try to record it in your papers so that at least you are free from that tension. If you ask me that, now coming to the documentation aspect, I think one point I did make that today we are in a bad situation. And I think I can give you a slogan for this, that if it is not documented, the work is not done. Even if you are a very, very serious professional, you do your work with all honesty and integrity. But you, being an old fellow like me, believe the word of people, trust in them, and then take your own decision based on your own gut feelings, according to your own conscience, and then sign the balance sheet and issue a report. Nobody will believe you today. In fact, last thing first, that if somebody is telling you something orally, you go and attend meetings. I used to tell people that, Baba, please, when you come back to your office, maintain a diary, record it there. Because tomorrow, if you have recorded, maintained a diary for last 5 years, where you record all important, significant discussions with your client, it may be taken as an evidence that you have done your work properly. So if you want to give some authenticity, credibility to the oral discussions, then you must do that. But in any case, you have to document that how exactly the documentation has to be done. So that means in the documentation, I'm not rushed to the working papers. For me, the work done by the auditor is what is called as the audit report. I'm making a proposition to you. As an auditor, whatever audits you are doing, statutory audit you are doing, the contents of the audit report are almost the standard ones. That means you write with reference to section 143. In section 143, of course, subsection 1 contents don't come in. Then there are a lot of contents are there in subsection 3, 10, 12 issues are there. Those are listed. Wonderful. Then auditing standards have to be complied with. Now auditing standards have to be complied with as per section 143. So those auditing standards, the reference comes in. So report has to be prepared in also in with reference to the SA 700, 701, 705, 706, 710, and 720. Of course, let's forget about 710 and 720, but 700, 701, 705. Of course, in 701 also may not be applicable to most of you in case you are not doing any listed company audits. For God's sake, it has been confined to the listed company audits. But the 701 about key audit matter is going to change the whole world. And this thing read with the Caro 2020 is going to be, I think, open a big Pandora box in the coming years. So you have to be very, very careful while signing on Caro 2020 report. This time, of course, it is not applicable. Please go ahead. But I think you should be very careful looking at the Caro provisions once again, because regulators are now getting free on all other activities. So they have got one point activity that how exactly to unearth all this. So they are actually seriously now on this job. So 22 reports shall be very, very of this thing. But the point which I'm trying to make is that if you look at the audit report, be it the report of a Reliance or be it the report of a Nathu Halwai, the size of the audit report remains the same. I think you will all agree with me. Maybe a few things here and there may not be applicable. So if Caro is applicable, 2 pages of report, 3 pages of 2 pages of Caro, 4 pages report. If not qualification, so the size of the audit report remains the same. But size of the audit report remains the same. But the effort, please now, when I'm talking on the effort, the work which has been done by the auditor in reaching that report, the report has been done with reference to the company's legislative requirements and the auditing standards. It shall run into the audit fees I think may start from, I don't know, 5,000 rupees to 5 crores or 7 crores or 10 crores. So number of hours spent by not one category of individual. There may be income tax experts, systems experts, there can be other experts. There must be so much of work must have undergone in reaching those, again, 4 pages of report. So the point which I'm trying to make, that as an outsider, when I look at the audit report, I'm not able to appreciate the amount of work which has been done by the firm reaching to that kind of a report. You must see that in that report, the entire thing has to be reflected. So that means you are trying to give an opinion on the financial statements of an entity based on the review procedures carried out by you, the judgments made by you, and the conclusions arrived by you in reaching at those things. So if I'm looking at the various things in the balance sheet, so what actually we want in documentation. Now, please understand the whole process of auditing has to be reflected in the audit documentation. There has to be a kind of course, I'm not talking of permanent file or that of course you can read through, but I'm trying to say that any kind of an audit procedure that's performed must be recorded therein. Normally speaking, I said, if I go by the sequence of auditing standards, first I will find what is called as the risk assessment to be done. That means whether the internal control was there, was it evaluated based on the internal control, how the materiality levels were determined, how the samples were determined, what kind of red flags were raised. So this has all to be recorded. After that, doing that, that means we have done the compliance procedures, first of all, to do the risk assessment. And then, of course, one goes to the series 5, that is audit evidence. Now, the transactions which were vouched have to be now substantiated, the balances have to be substantiated. So entire series 5 deals with the substantiation of the information contained in the balance sheet. Naturally, so I want to see in the documents, see if the fixed assets are there, if they're being shown at a particular value, were the existence on that date, how did I verify that? Was it the value, how the value was, do I have something paper? Whether the accounting standard, the fair value, it has to be estimated, or say some drop in the valuation is there, how that accounting estimates have been done. So I think there is a standard 540 on the estimates and fair value. Very, very dangerous standards. And for an auditor to take a judgment and make a value on that is a difficult job. And please remember, as I said earlier, that I look at an auditing professional, an accounting professional, who exactly actually is taking a judgment on each and every issue. So once you're doing the audit, the way you did your compliance procedures, the way you did the verification procedure of substantiating it, it has to be recorded. On many of the issues, I think on practically on most of the issues, say on leases can be a very, very critical issue. Recording of revenues can itself be a very critical issue. So in the leasing, whether it is a financial lease, operating lease, how it has to be done, how it has been arrived at, is that figure convincing enough, persuades you enough that this is all fine so that you can give your opinion. You will have to document all these necessary things therein, and you have to ask a question. See, please understand, I'm not saying that you consult somebody, you call the branch chairman, Murli, I want your opinion on this, or somebody then calls Shekhizar, I want your opinion on this. You Shekhizar tell you something on this, no, Baba, as per this book, this book, it should be there. For God's sake, I think you will not be doing any harakari if you record that thing that I had talked with one of the professional friends. He did suggest like this. I've gone through this paragraph. I felt convinced that this is the thing which is being shown like this is fine. The question is that if there is a significant judgment has to be made, how this judgment was finalized, how that can be supported. So that you have to record. So in case of the audit documentation, I think you must be able to get those engagement letters. Of course, first of all, that is there. I will come back to that standard by standard. I will go through that quickly. So you have to record that, the nature of audit procedures performed, what kind of evidence it was obtained. If there was some kind of a confusion, some kind of a judgment has to be taken, how that matter was resolved. That must be recorded in writing. Otherwise, this can be a serious thing. And my request to the chairman will be, if you can circulate the questionnaire which is available in peer review manual, or many practice units, some practice unit may be getting it. I think circulate them free of cost, or give them peer review manual free of cost. Let them go through it and let them try to fill up their own firm's thing on their own, and where do they stand. So that tomorrow, if things comes to them, they can do it in a comfortable manner. So in case of audit documentation, I'm sure that you should be able to do the job. And there is one thing which I think I left, I think before I go to that, I think in the audit thing, the things become very difficult because first of all, I do not know how, because most of the auditors would rely upon the junior staff, and junior staff shall keep on changing. Now, please understand, junior staff does something, and if you don't review it properly, you can be in trouble. So you're taking the help of a junior staff. So this has to be taken care of. And I'm sure that auditing is a very dangerous assignment, Baba. I will tell people, since it is a public interest activity, because some people will come and raise why lawyers are treated like this. But Baba, you should tell them auditors are taking care of the public interest. And see, when you're giving an audit report, and if you want to write something, you're acting against your client. What a wonderful thing, the client pays you and you are paid for writing against the client. So you have to be independent. So these are all controversies which have to be solved. So your risks are much greater. So my request to you is that you have to be very careful, since you are dependent, because you cannot do everything. And in many cases, you have to rely upon the value of the report. Particularly, we used to give an example of, say, in case of, say, actuary's report on the, say, retirement benefits have to be reflected. Now, if it varies the rate of interest from a certain percentage here to there, the things can change comfortably well, But as an auditor, you have to rely, but you have to actually verify whether that report can be relied or not. So I'm sure that our small audit practitioners will take care of it. And as I go to the next, I must put it in red letters. See, we know, and we must know it clearly, that our small practitioners do not have resources, do not have, first of all, if they're not doing large number of audits, they need not worry much. They should not take any much of trouble. But if they're, even if they're doing some audits and tax audits, they have to maintain those working papers very, very carefully. But our small auditors, they don't have resources, neither in terms of what I will call it as the human resources, nor technology. Of course, I'm sure that I think Institute is doing some kind of an effort that they can give you some kind of softwares as we go forward. Because going forward, I think you will need some kind of technology support, because human resources will be again very difficult to find, and how to actually structure these papers is quite a difficult thing. Because as I move on to the next standard, that is the basic, I will call it as a umbrella standard. Umbrella standard, you know, it is like an umbrella under which the entire thing rests. In fact, this umbrella comes under the Institute's ethics standards. We call it a standard on quality control. So what we was talking of the standard on engagement standards, we had some, I think, inkling about the documentation aspect. And if you go to the standard on quality control, I think it talks about the culture of the firm. Culture of the firm. Because what they're telling that how the firm works, what is the quality of the firm, quality system of the firm while doing the audit, review, assurance, engagements, you know. So in that case, standard on quality control is there. Now let me tell you this, after 2 years ago, I think post further standards, this SQC has also undergone a change at the world level. Now it is known as SQM. No, they don't call it as a control. They call it as a management. Now call it a standard quality management. So very soon, I think by next year, I think our institute is a little slow in this matter. At the world level, it has become from SQC to SQM. So under the SQC, let me put it like this, because when SQC was brought in 2008, everybody talks about the culture of the audit firm, how that firm looks like, how that firm behaves. In fact, SQ standard on quality control talks that each firm must have 5 legs of its own. Those 5 legs are, number 1, I will talk very big. So that is why I made a embargo that my small practitioners have to follow this, but they may not have human resources or technology, but they must be able to maintain this on record, on documentation. Because the first questionnaire which is sent by the to the practice unit by the reviewer is that how your SQC is working, you know. There are 5 legs on which SQC stand. The first one is leadership. The second one is ethical standards, ethical aspects, acceptance and continuation of clients, human resources, and engagement performance. Of course, 6th one is monitoring. I'll briefly touch upon this, that how exactly this leadership. Now, leadership, the world looks like to be bigger. So in big firms, they will have naturally the leadership, there will be chief executive officer. And let me tell you, I'm of a very, very strong opinion that there is, I think there are big 10 firms in this country. There's no big 4. Big 4 of the world's big 4 are different. They are really big 4, you know. In this country, we have got BDO doing so many audits, Grant Thornton doing so many audits. So they're all, and in fact, I should not, I can name some other firms also. So there are actually 10 to 15 big firms are there in this country. It's not the big 4 in this country. It's a misnomer. Rather, I will say there are big 25 in this country, and those big 25 could have become more bigger in case the institute opens its doors and allows them to grow. These 25 can become the first big 25 of the world. I am so much of confidence, you know. There is so much of potential in this country. So when we talk of big 10 or these big 15 in this country, what I find The leadership is there in each of the firm. There is a CEO. In fact, even in my Delhi firm ASA, I find, and in fact, no, in many firms I find that these firms have got their own independent boards, and their independent boards have the top names from the public on their boards, which guide those firms. Auditing firms, friends, I'm talking about auditing firms. So they guide those boards. So in case of, say, ASA associates, I can name them. So I find there is a big board, and that big board is dominated by so many, say, diplomats or some IAS or retired IAS officer and somebody. So those people have made these kind of, there is a separate CEO who looks after them. So the first question is, they say that the culture of the firm requires that there should be a leader, a leader in the firm. So there should be a separate leader. Why leader? But according to me, each firm has a leader. The managing partner, the senior most partner is a leader. The role of the leader is, Baba, if I am facing some problem, I've got some issues, some questions, some problems, to whom I should look at it. Can't I go back and talk to the senior most member in the firm that, sir, I'm stuck here. I need your guidance. I need your guidance. So the question is that that there is a leader. So in each firm, there is a leader, according to me. So any article, any mid-level person doing any kind of effort, so there is a leadership. There is a managing partner to whom everybody can look at and ask and clear his own doubts and dilemmas. So leadership is the first leg on which the firm should stand. The reason is that any doubt, any dilemma, any problem, any kind of a doubt can be cleared and clarified without any problem. So that's why we say leadership is important. A person should not be hunting, first of all, outside the firm. That they may go depending upon talking to the leader. One may seek a legal opinion, or those things, all things guys are done. But there's a person to whom you always look upon. The second leg on which the SQC stands is the ethical. I think said more than enough of times, independence is the cornerstone. In fact, I say if the independence is not there, the profession is not there. So independence has to be there. Without independence, the profession cannot stand. And I've always fought with the people that in fact, I can tell you in one of the lectures which I was giving in Bombay, and Uda Kotak questioning me again and again. I was standing at the top floor of Taj Hotel, the new building of Taj Hotel at the fort area. After 3 questions, I asked Mr. Kotak, please do let me know, has that Bombay Stock Exchange tower in Dalal Street has fallen in the ground? I could see that tower from that 35th floor of Taj Hotel. I said, tell me, Mr. Kotak, has that tower fallen on the ground? Do you think that auditors are not independent and not doing their work? I can give you real instances. One day I was sitting with Adi Godrej in one of the program in SP Jain Institute of Management in Bombay. I asked people were questioning us about the independence of auditors. I just asked in front of the media, I said, Mr. Godrej, can you tell me who your auditors are? He said, Mr. Kapur is Kalyaniwala and Mistry. I said, how long those auditors have been there? He said, 65 years. I said, if 65 years, have anything gone wrong with the Godrej Group? He said, no. Has anything perceived by the public as on? No. Then why people brought in this even rotation? I've been basically against the rotation. People thought by rotation the work would go up. According to me, the rotation created more problems. Please understand, to understand a client, understand the client's business, to understand the way he does the work, a report has to be obtained. It has to be maintained. It's the doing work for an auditor in the client's premises is not that easy. So independence, I think that is one of the basic structures that has to be maintained. And of course, SQC requires that has to be documented. Now, because in the case of independence, I think the SQC, which makes a point and which peer review also make a point, you have to document is that because now imagine if now LLPs are there. I think there are 300 LLPs which may be having more than 20, 30, 50, 70 partners. Now each partner and his relatives have to disclose whether they have bought the client's shares or not, how much they have got an interest. No, they have to all document this. So please understand that in the firms which are having 300 partners, 400 partners, how they have to manage their independent system, that somebody by mistake, even I may not be knowing that my firm is dealing in this particular thing. In case of 1 or 2 partners, in fact, in 3 partners, 7 partners, you do not know. And my request to the small partnerships are there, that in many cases you have entered in the partnership on papers. You make your own arrangements of collecting the fees and doing the work, that if the work comes there, you will do. If you have brought the work, you do like this. You don't check it out. But please remember, I think you should have a one consolidated document where you can see that he may not be knowing that I am having an interest in particular bank, and that fellow goes and takes something, does something there, So those kind of things, that consolidated statement must be made. It must be known, it must be circulated. Even from the firm's viewpoint of it, it will be a good practice. So let's understand, we are talking of the culture of the firm. So one is leadership. Second is ethical, that is independence. Of course, there's a pretty long thing. The third one is acceptance and the continuation of clients. I'm sure that people shouted that why auditors are resigning. In fact, this year, about 45 resignations are there in 2021. According to me, no auditor shall resign any client happily. For him, it is the most worst thing to happen. No auditor shall like to leave any client. According to me, then I wrote a blog that an auditor who's resigning, you must celebrate that the independence of the auditor, that he must have considered hundreds of questions at his own end. He must have analyzed everything at his own end, and then he has decided to resign. It is not that he's forfeiting his fees or something like that. In fact, it is his entire reputation at stake before resigning. He must be thinking 100 times. It will have a negative impact on the share value of the company as well. So it's not a small question. Take it seriously. My question to the government was that if the auditor has resigned and has taken that risk of his life, did you question the board of directors or promoters of that company again? Did you go back to them and hang them? No, that you will not do. You will tell why auditors, auditors have resigned. Of course, in 5 cases, I've been told this year in 2021, auditors resigned without stating any reason. So that's not fair. In fact, an auditor can resign for any valid reasons, but if he does it for any invalid reasons, it's not acceptable. So that situation I'll maintain. So acceptance and continuation of client, I think auditor need to assess it very carefully. It's a risky business, and but at the end of the day, I think all companies get audited. And I'm wondering that if some companies are so much bad that no auditor will take up the audit. I think that's not happening. But in a particular case, we saw that 1 firm, 2 firm, 3 firms resigned, one after the another. It's not the fear. The question is that environment which is now prevailing in this country, be it SFIO or be it because a lot of notifications. So friends, please understand, I know many firms which are undergoing this kind of a severe stress. It's not that an easy for an auditor to this thing. In fact, many of my students are leading partners in many of this. They say, sir, we want to give it up. Enough is enough. We actually can't do this work, and we know that next day something would happen to us. So this is a very, very serious profession. So my hand-folded request is this: that please do things as per the law. Of course, I will tell something at the end of my lecture also. The fourth pillar on which the SPC stand is human resources. I think if you do not have human resources, you can't do the audit. You cannot do the audit. It will be all shabby work. This is what has actually happened in many of the public sector banks. And the way things goes on, the way things CAG knows, the way even the public sector banks know, things are not in good shape. So you have to have a staff. But how to retain the staff? In fact, I go to the extent of telling, because if you're making auditing profession as a non-remunerative profession, who will come and join this profession? Who the hell, why should I come? And if one of your children wants to become a chartered accountant, he says, hell with you, Papa, I will not come to your firm. I'll go and join some advisory function. I'll go and do some merger investment. I'll do some other course, and I'll do that. So there I will make money in mergers, and so many mergers are happening, so many startups. I'll go and do that. Why should I come to the auditing profession? If auditing profession is not remunerative, the talent cannot be retained. Of course, in that human resources, and there's a paragraph, though now they're calling it as recommendatory. According to me, the staff is the strength of the audit. If the staff is not good, surely the conduct of the audit shall also not be good. So there they have to record what kind of incentive plans are there. In fact, I can talk to you at length. In fact, there is one company which I can name from Jaipur, and very leading firm from the Jaipur, Kalani and Company, Kalani and Co. Now, Kalani and Co. in fact had a practice. It used to be 20 partners firm, the biggest out of 8 or 10 firms. It used to be 20 partners, all genuine partners. As a firm, it had a written practice that there's a 1 crore of funds. From there you can take the loan. If the brother sister's marriage is there, or the daughter's marriage, so much of money would be given. After 5 years, you will get this thing. After 10 years, you will get the house. So that kind of things have been done, so that when the firm as a practice has to grow, so that the firms will not grow unless such kind of healthy practices are followed. So SQC as a culture of the firm is based on the best practices, but whether that can be followed or not, it's a major question. And finally, of course, is the engagement performance. Now, the engagement performance has got several issues. 2 issues I want to highlight. That there is a call as EQCR, Engagement Quality Control Review. I think I can take my sip of tea. Engagement Quality Control Review. That means before the audit report, I know this is a very stringent requirement, and which needs to be documented, that after you have completed the work and prepare the audit report, along with the document, you have to submit it to the Engagement Quality Control Reviewer. Engagement Quality Control Review. That Engagement Quality Control Reviewer shall verify that whether all compliances by you have been done or not. Now, whether the engagement quality control reviewer is from the firm, but he should not be connected with the work. He can be an outsider. That fellow has to review and tell you. EQCR, a very stringent requirement. And let me link this requirement with SA 230 on audit documentation. Very simple. SA 230 tells us that if I am subjected to the court of law, and how the court of law would determine my documentation is adequate or not. There is a wonderful concept there in SA 230. We call it as experienced auditor. Experienced auditor, please understand, according to me, audit is not a simple activity. Understanding the client business itself is a big if. Experienced auditor is one who has got the relevant professional experience of doing that kind of an industry audit for several years. An experienced auditor, if he goes through, now please understand, I used to give that example. If I'm looking at the audit report sitting on the top of my file, whether that audit report is appropriate or not, I go back to the audit documentation. After reading through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, I come to know, no, Baba, the opinion which is given, either modified or qualified or disclaimer, is fine. That means any experienced auditor, I used to give an example, though it is little impractical, that if my audit documentation goes to 10 different partners, 10 different experienced auditors, all 10 different experienced auditors reach at the same conclusion. That should be the quality of audit documentation. So there is a very, very stringent concept in the SQC. So what I'm telling you that there are 5 pillars: leadership, ethical, that is independence, acceptance and continuation of clients, good human resources, and 5th one is engagement performance, engagement quality control review. Now here 2 things I wish to add, very important for your knowledge. SEQC, that is SQC 1, tells very clearly. Now, in fact, once you must have seen that the kind of softwares which are being prescribed by the MCA, that which cannot be changed and from the back date. SQC tells that after doing the work uh, within 60 days, you have to assemble and complete the file. Assemble and complete the file. That means your documentation within 60 days of doing the work should be assembled and kept on one side, and that cannot be altered once again. Now, this is the requirement which is being done by many firms, but at the highest of the highest level in the government of India, there have been some issues and some misunderstanding at some levels. But 16 days you have to close the file. Number one. The second thing is that of course ownership, custody of the working paper is with you. That retention of the working paper has to be for 7 years, because the 7-year came into the, I think, some rules of disciplinary. Earlier it used to be 10 years. I will still recommend as an old fellow that Baba keep it for 10 years. I think my younger generation may like on a small laptop, they will keep everything. So they can keep it for years together, doesn't matter. So the requirement is 7 years. So SQC1 is basically like a umbrella standard which talks of the culture of the firm and these 5 qualities of the firm. There must be a system to have these 5 qualities in the firm and to be depicted very clearly. You have to document your leadership. You have to document your independence requirements. As I said, many partners may have different interests at different places. You have to document your acceptance. Why did you accept this client and why you are continuing with this client? What kind of human resources are there and how the engagement quality control reviews are taking place. So these are the something we call it as the quality culture or quality control system of the firm. So this is, I think, I've covered almost all the points, except that if you want me, I can go some standard wise. Mr. Chairman, are there 15 minutes?
Sir.
Can I talk for 15 more minutes or?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
So even more also, no problem, sir.
You are very, what you call it as very kind to me. I do not know how I have to repay that kindness.
No, sir.
No. I'm sure that I'm making some sense to all of you. No, as I said, I think I'll cover standard by standard, and because I said in the series 2 there are a lot of standards, series 3, series 4, series 5. So I'll just touch at the standard and make few cryptic remarks. I'm sure that you will enjoy them because I've got some lot of see, SA 200, which deals with the objective and the general purpose. In fact, it requires the auditors to maintain the documentation. In fact, the need for documentation is mandated in SA 200 itself. That's number one. SA 210 is that you must get the engagement letter, which my friends normally don't get. I think many years we have been trying. I'm sure that things must have improved now. That in fact, bankers with bank audits, it used to be a lot of problems, but still we insisted that you must get. It is the requirement of the standard. SA 220 is the quality control standard for the firm itself, which has to be documented. Of course, 230 I've covered, that whether audit program or permanent file, current file, summaries of memorandum issues. So I'm sure that it contains a lot of requirements which were done in general. SA 240 deals with the fraud. Now, of course, here you have to record the work, whatever has been done by you. According to me, I think I did make a very general statement that auditors cannot detect all the frauds and they cannot be bloodhounds. I do not know why they want auditors to develop a good smell. Why they should go and sniff and smell? There is no need, according to me. See, the standard of the standards on auditing, if you follow them step by step, I'm very confident you have done your work. People are not trying to understand that in case I have followed the standard, I have documented the nature of industry, what kind of red flags were there. Because I'm saying that one of the biggest red flag in 2021 and 21-22 will be that many management will try to show a very, very bright picture of their own things, the way things have happened. So auditors have to be very, very careful. So you have to actually pinpoint and keep a red flag and get a reasonable, good explanation before dropping that. In fact, the name of the standard is that, you please understand, the name of the standard is Auditors Responsible Relating to Fraud in an Audit of Financial Statements. We are not talking of errors. So we are saying that auditor's responsibility we have listed down. We don't say that auditors are not responsible for frauds. Auditors are responsible for frauds. Their duties, how they have to perform you, is given in SA 240. Please, for God's sake, don't shout in the public. People are shouting, they should become bloodhound. Arey Baba, can I become a bloodhound? Can I imagine? I will ask a reverse question. Can I go to the company, X company, and I say, I will only detect the frauds? Arey Baba, what work I'm going to do? Even if when the forensic auditor goes, he knows that there is something wrong somewhere. He will start catching that up. As an auditor, we are not expected to do this. So please, for God's sake, I think we have to just go by this standard, list down those steps, and keep our books clear that we have done this work. We assess the risk properly. We have seen the nature of industry's risk. We have seen the environment. We have seen the red flag. So we have done that enough. So one of the red flag there is whether top executives are left the company during the year. So that can be one of the red flags. 250 is the consideration of laws and regulation. Now again, see, I think auditors have been magnanimous. They have accepted their duties that we will check, Baba. Otherwise, normally speaking, as an auditor, I should be worried about only those laws and regulations which have an impact on the financial statement numbers. I need not be worried that how those laws and regulations are going to say affect other things. But this standard did say that if violation of laws and regulation did impact the going concern status, then it needs to be looked into. So 250 requires that. Then 260, I think communication with those, I think this is more for the listed companies where you talk with the audit committees. And then of course 265 is the communicating deficiencies in internal control. Normally I used to consider it an opportunity for the auditors. If I've reviewed the internal control, I have found some deficiencies there. I'll say, Baba, your system is weak. We'll get it strengthened. So we'll bring in some other people. Nothing wrong in it. See, if I have spent as a time as an expert, as a specialist, I have found, I know what exactly where the fault lies. Why they should bring another special? So there is something wrong somewhere about the auditing profession as a whole. Having done that kind of a, in fact, frankly speaking, I was amazed at one of the government officers' approach. He said the fellow who's doing statutory audit should not do the tax audit. He says, what rubbish I told him you are talking about? Now, here's a person who has done the entire work, tax audit he will do at half of the cost. He knows much better. Let him do this job. I'm not sure something happens tomorrow in this direction or not. So if deficiencies in internal control are known to the statutory auditor, he's communicating. He knows where the plugs, leaks, loopholes have to be plugged. Of course, SA 299 deals with the joint auditor, on which I have some specific reservations. Then 300 deals with the planning. I think planning and audit documentation are like husband and wife. So whatever is being done in the SA 230, I think under SA 300, that planning has to be done very, very carefully, because the moment you will enter, what kind of systems you will check, what kind of substantive reviews you will do, what kind of approach will be followed. So that is all that goes under the planning. 315, I gave you an example. I also gave you an example. I think did read the paragraph numbers that where for there's a window for one sole proprietor. So it is not that auditing standards do not talk of the small auditors or the sole proprietor. They do talk about it. Somehow, I think the effort has not been done. Of course, IFAC is, I think IAASB is doing that effort. They are trying to bring one comprehensive document culled out from all these standards, and maybe 30, 40, 50 pages it may run into. That's it. But I think institute, we could have done that job. That for small practitioners, these are the paragraphs. Please pay attention to this and do your job. 315 is, of course, the material misstatement. 330, that depending upon 315, we can say, how do we actually approach that kind of tests are carried out. Then, of course, 402, in case of, I think, service organizations. Now, this standard will become important, may not be applicable to you, but you must have seen, say, Accenture and Genpact, maybe doing the accounting for 20 organizations. Now, many organizations are given up this accounting function and outsource this function. So any service organization doing that function, now what auditor will do there? All accounting function is being done by a service organization. So this standard will takes care of that. 450 is, of course, a very important standard. And of course, 500, then that is risk assessment series is over. Of course, all these audit evidence series 500 is very, very my favorite series, be it audit evidence. Now, in the audit evidence, the concept is that you have to obtain sufficient appropriate evidence. I used to say that quantity versus quality is inversely related to each other. So your quantum of evidence will come down if your evidence which is collected earlier is more reliable. So if the quality of evidence is gone, go to the quantity will. So you have to obtain sufficient and appropriate, that is reliable and relevant evidence. So this has to be recorded. And of course, external confirmation is one thing which has been, I think, which has been abused. And in Satyam, this was a basically basic issue, because external confirmations, I do not know how they were managed, or they were not seen. And actually the partners, my friend Gopal, did not look at them. I'm not very sure. In fact, I don't have the courage to, even look at those papers. But the fact remains that external confirmations that obtained from the banks contained say $10, but in the accounts it was shown $100,000. That was the difference in external confirmations. So it's a very external confirmation is an independent source of external audit evidence, and this must have been taken into account. But since Gopalakrishnan was a good friend of mine, I did work with him for a large number of years. So I do not know why did they miss on it, and why did it happen? Was it intentional? But external confirmation was one of the basic things where a lot of bungling was there. There, of course, initial engagement, opening balances. I think it is a natural practice for any auditor at any level that we must catch up with those opening balances. And 620 is the analytical procedures. According to me, friends, I think going forward, I think some people used to raise a question and ask me that how, sir, that many people don't go to the for audit in a field. Now, there is a reason for it. So now you must have seen the way the bank audits are done. The way if you look at the kind of the State Bank of Audit, or say now you compare it with the, say, Citibank or any other bank, you will find that it is working on the technology, it is working on the softwares. According to me, ratios, or say ratios is a very, very elementary word to use for it. Ratios are, say, analytical procedures do provide substantive audit evidence. That means sitting on my table, on my computer, if I calculate various ratios in the banking industry, I can verify that whether the things are in order or not. This thing can be done. And now this is happening more in case of remote audits. Of course, in the inventory verification, this may be still an issue, but this is being done. So analytical procedure is a most powerful standard, and provides a lot of leeway, and the way the audits will change over the coming years further. Of course, analytical sampling, etc. The sample you will have to state, and please let's remember, I think a very childish statement. 100% testing 100% does not mean that you will be able to know everything about the entity. The answer is bold letters, capital no. So testing, sampling is desirable, and please understand, if you are giving, please understand, I made a statement, no client shall pay an extra penny to the auditor. And please understand why an auditor should do an extra work which is not required. So as a good professional, you must be able to define your professional limits. You must be able to adopt the professional way and spend only that time which is required, because your time is money, and you should be charging the, of course, Sekkizhar should be very happy on this. You should be charging to the client as per the time being spent by you. Coming to the related parties, I think the genesis of related parties is very well known. I think is one of the, without online transaction, the way we try to enter into business, the way we try to influence things, I think they're more common. And so the way accounting standards deal with that, in auditing, you have to verify, you have to obtain those. So this is all need to be documented. Subsequent events. In subsequent events, please understand, there we have classified, in fact, before the fall of, I think it was not September. I am forgetting the name. I think it was some 2002. There was a Tata company, something happened, I don't remember. So in the submission of the audit report, subsequent events, that once you have submitted the audit report, has it been approved by the board? That is one time gap. The second time it has been approved by the board, it is before the AGM, it has been circulated to the public. That is second time back. The third time that AGM has taken place, audit report has been accepted by the board. Accounts have been approved, everything. And then something comes subsequently happens. In fact, I can tell you that Pricewaterhouse did call back the report as a subsequent event under the power of this standard. Please understand very clearly. So once I submit a report, there is a time gap that once it goes to the board for approval, can I change my report? Yes, I can. Approved by the board, goes to the general body, circulated to the shareholders. Can I withdraw that my report? I can withdraw my report. General meeting has happened, AGM has happened, everything is over. After 6 months, I come to know that some fraud has taken place. Can I withdraw my report? Yes, I can withdraw my report. SA 560 tells us that. So very interesting standards. In fact, these standards are meant to empower the auditors, that whatever work they are doing in that particular framework. Of course, going concern is one of the basics, fundamental accounting assumptions, and should be followed. And then written representations are more abused. Please note my words very clearly, that written representations must be obtained, must form part of the documentation, but in no case they can be used as a substitute for audit evidence. No, they cannot be used as a, they can support the evidence already collected. So written we don't call it as if we change the name from management representation, we call it as a representation which has to be in writing. A written representation which supports the evidence already obtained. So you have to be very careful that simply by that inventory valuation is so much, and particularly in this COVID time, going by the statement of the management, please be God sure, either give a disclaimer. I think some people did use some kind of a language to obviate this kind of a difficulty. I think again, series 6 is my favorite series. Of course, my first deals with these group audits, 600, and then 610 with the internal auditors. In fact, I am of the view that internal auditors should be two observations I will make. Going forward, the work of an internal auditor shall become more remunerative. In fact, somebody who doesn't want to enter into statutory audit area should try to enter into internal audit practice. It is going to be, and if you can develop those skills, set up the systems, do the internal audits, the cost of the statutory audit will come down, the cost of the internal audit would go up, but it will be much more give value to the client. So as a practitioner, I think you must think of these ideas. In fact, many large firms I know, those who are actually entering into this area in a particular big way. And in fact, for your information, BCAJ, Bombay Chartered Accountants Society, runs a big forum on internal audit. And I think they do a lot of good work in this area. Of course, Institute of Internal Auditors is also there. So, and again, there is a good standard using the work of an expert, because in auditor does not have any competence to value the gem, jewelries, or say oil, fields, or everything. So they go by the valuers, experts as a gratuity, but they must be able to apply their judgments. Why did they? They must be able to question the assumptions taken up by those experts. You know, by simply filing in the documents will not suffice. You know. So this is, with this, I think I come to the end. I think there is a whole series of standards: 700, 701, 705, 706, 710, 720. I think I will just speak one sentence on 720. 20 years ago or 15 years ago, if somebody picked the annual report, there will be chairman's statement, director's report, auditor's report, balance sheet and profit and loss account, and maybe blah blah, some corporate governance report, something else may be there. As an auditor, it was not part of his duty to look at any other document which is included in that report. But going forward, it has been found that the position which is being verified by the auditor, shown by way of his opinion in his own report, some contradictory statements have been given in the director's report. By SA 720, auditor is required to read through that director's report and comment on it and maintain a note in his working papers that have gone, and there is nothing contradictory as far as figures are concerned. It has happened into n number of cases, you know, that directors are trying to show a very rosy picture, but as per the accounts, it is a different picture. So auditors are required to go through other information contained in the, see, imagine the duties of auditors have been changing in the last 15, 20 years, that they're requested to go through, expected to go through and find out. So all these things are going to maintain a record. I think the auditor's responsibilities are quite wide. I think they have to exercise a lot of care. So with these words, I will say thank you. And time permits, then I will of course say 2, 3, 4 more things at the end of my this thing. Let my friend Sekkizhar speak. And my request to all the members, first of all, I'm sure that I was audible. I was communicative, or they were able to understand my diction. Maybe I have spoken after long years of time. For these 2 hours, I always give lecture for 45 minutes, 30 minutes. But my friend Sekkizhar said, no, Baba, you have to do this task. So my request to all the members, please do not hesitate to ask any questions. And with these words, I thank Chairman and the entire branch for giving this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Good evening, members. Thank you, Dr. Vijay Kapur. It has been a pleasure to hear you. And when the author of the standard speaks the standard, it is a pleasure to hear. And also a person who has been instrumental in communicating with the regulators on behalf of the ICAI, and also the ministerial bodies like Finance Ministry or Reserve Bank of India. It has been a wonderful feeling when we are able to hear you and your views on this matter. And I will straight away get into the presentation. And sir, to be honest, members from Vijay are familiar with me, so I'm not getting into so detailed thing, but I'll share my presentation and then go and we'll take. So the practical aspects, I will cover on practical aspects. Chairman, is the presentation there? Can you see it?
Yes, sir. We are able to see, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
So I thank the Mr. Murali Krishna, Mr. Vasudeva Murthy, Secretary Prashant. It has been a pleasure for me to join you, and thank you very much. So I will rush through. I mean, I will not go into detail. This paper will be circulated to all the members. See, the SQC1 is, though we say it is compliance, but it helps you to build your practice. So we generally have, globally, we have mainly 3 streams, and in some firms there are 4 streams: audit, tax, financial advisory, and consulting. So we generally say audit, tax, consulting, and these are the 3 facets of our revenue streams. And our practice as a chartered accountant is regulatory related, whether income tax or Companies Act or other procedures. And the income streams comes from 3, audit, tax, consulting. If you compare it with doctor firms, outpatients, and you have a gynecologist practice and you have a cardiologist practice. So outpatient or general practice of audit, I mean, will be relating to like audit. We have a large number of patients, and whereas in gynecology practice, the amount is slightly larger, but the time period in which the patient will interact with the firm will be smaller. So tax practice is like that. And advisory practice is like consulting, and it's like a cardiology practice. So you help companies to get incorporated, you help. So mostly when as a chartered accountant in practice, you are acting like a CFO or many companies or many businesses. So the matters are people, process, knowledge, and client. These are the 4 facets of our practice. So SQC1 gives a lot of secrets of how to grow your practice. So don't take it lightly. And each of those buckets of standards are separate revenue stream for each of the chartered accountants. Say, for example, stock audit or concurrent audit. So agreed upon procedures standard is there. So see the documents, the firm level SQC1, Mr. Kapur has covered it. I'm not getting into this. Permanent audit file. There is a separate current audit file for each client. An engagement letter is a very important document. You need to have engagement letter which specify each year. And in that engagement letter, there should be a separate paragraph that the files are likely to be peer reviewed, and hence you may have to have these papers, confidential papers of the client may be reviewed by another auditor. That should be a standard part of the engagement letter. And standardized documentation in each firm is very important. That will help you to grow the firm. You can have more partners and you will have more locations and things like that. And I would urge each of the practitioners to have a partnership firm rather than a sole proprietor. So I am sure that half of the practitioners are sole proprietors, but definitely going forward, partnership firm will be beneficial, and somebody can focus on company audit, somebody can focus on only audit, somebody can focus on tax, and somebody can focus on GST practice and things like that, internal audit, things like that. Then going for a planning document, for planning and audit, you should have a separate document, and that document should contain the background of the client, current business position, financial indicators, what are the significant audit matters. So for example, this year, there is likely to be a very significant, NPA level is likely to increase in the case of banks, and going concern problem will be very, particularly in Vizag area, you have a lot of hotel audits, and the hotels have not been opened and restaurants have not been functioning. So one has to look at how to treat these, business continuity issues, and whether people have continued in the service, whether people are in the jobs or not, whether the employee liability. So you for each year, you have different issues. In an election year, You will have political party contribution and things like that. In the planning document, I'm going to share this document with you. So I may be rushing through this because of paucity of time, but I will be sharing this document so that branch will circulate to all the members. Audit approach, materiality, this is at the initial level. Materiality can keep changing as the audit progresses, and it depends on individual items, also collectively as the financial statement taken as a whole. And staffing and time budget, and prepared by, reviewed by, and approved by. And detailed documents, you need audit programs in each section, significant material, significant transactions, you need audit programs, nature, extent, timing of audit procedures performed, evidence of review of audit program, extent of working done, findings, what is the outcome of this testing, and corrective action. What have you done with those findings once you have those audit procedures executed? And there has to be detailed documents on risk assessments, controls, whether they exist, whether how have you tested the controls, whether you have relied on those controls. This is a very big area. If you rely on control, you do less substantive work. If you don't rely on control, you do extend to substantive procedures. And then you have analytical review procedures. So these are the three cornerstones of audit, test of controls, substantive audit procedures, and analytical review procedures. And then we discussed about confirmations, external and internal confirmations, and physical verification papers, conclusions. See, many times conclusions are not available in the audit papers, how you have confirmed, whether how you have concluded. And consultation, this is very important. When you are a firm and you are a sole proprietor also, if you are doing a very large partnership firm, today we have even partnership firms which run to 600 crores, 1,000 crores. There are sole proprietor firms which are having 1,000 crore turnover and things like that. So when you do audit of such companies or such businesses, you need to have consultations. So you need to consult with another chartered accountant, and that has to be documented and should form part of the file. Then detailed documentation may include Ind AS compliance or accounting standards checklist, compliance checklist. Bombay Chartered Accountants Society has a checklist. And even our own institute has checklists for these type of things from various publications of the institute material. And then Companies Act and other act compliances checklists, which whether you have done disclosure checklist. Disclosure means disclosure according to the various act. You have Schedule 3 compliance and things like that. Tax audit checklist, bank audit checklist, both branch and central statutory auditors. Internal audit, joint audit, branch audit papers, related papers should be part of file. Expert, if you have actuarial valuation or lawyer papers relating to disputes and tribunal appeals and things like high court papers, all papers. Extract of board minutes is another very big area. Secretarial compliance papers. Suppose you do a company where secretarial audit is a must, or corporate governance is a must, then you have those compliances you need to have. And at the end of the audit, you need to have a document which will summarize all the audits. That I would request all of you to follow that. You have a single document which will run into some 10 pages or 15 pages, which will contain all the aspects of the audit, significant audit, that should contain this company background, financial summary of financials, resolved matters, what are the adjustments you have made in the financial statements, what are the unresolved matters, other matters which are judgment related matters. If you have provision for doubtful debts, obsolete inventory and things like that, analytical review papers, summary of unadjusted errors if you have. Then as a part of this summary audit points, I would recommend you to have these documents so that you don't miss out some important compliance with an auditing standard. One is communication with those charged with governance. So every year you should discipline the firm that you should write to the board what are the significant matters arising out of the audit. Significant subsequent events. One area where most of the practicing chartered accountants are found to be non-compliant is subsequent event. They did subsequent event testing, but they have not documented it. When I am doing an audit of 31st March in the month of October or November or December, I need to have the subsequent document events evaluation to be documented and how I have dealt in the financial statement. Letter of representation is a must, and it should come from the letterhead of the company or the entity which you are auditing. That should be there every year. You should have letter of representation. An audit report should be both the draft auditor's report and signed auditor should be part of the file. Board resolution approving the accounts, and then signed financial statements from the board. So these are the important documents which should form part of the file. And recent developments. See, you have a notification which says accounting software should with audit trail should be there. Now that has been postponed to financial year 23, and some release is there on that. But going forward, we will have regulator dictating the auditors to have detailed technological audit file also. Though we have standards which are in place, but we may have to get into more compliance regime in the future, because our signature is getting more important for the banks and financial institutions and stock market. Hence, the more compliance is likely to come on board, and definitely that is going to give us opportunity to charge more fees to the clients. But nevertheless, we should take care of our interest because our signature is more important for us. And I think with this I will conclude, and I will wait for questions, and I would request Dr. Vijay Kapur to take on these questions, and I hand it back to the organizers.
Thank you very much, Vijay Kapur sir and Shakir sir. Members, please unmute yourself and pose your queries so that the learned speakers will reply to the queries and questions. Please unmute yourself and pose the question.
Sir, Vijay Kapur sir.
Yeah.
So even proprietorships also have to undergo for the peer review, is it not?
Yes.
Is it every year or when this institution requires it?
Well, in fact, the peer review board has got 3 categories, and I think you may be falling into the last category. There are 1, 2, and 3 categories depending upon the kind of audits which are being handled. So that declaration you have to make. If you are doing a listed company audit, then you will come in the category 1. About 900 or 950 firms are there. So they have to obtain, every three yearly. So in case your number has not come, that means you do not follow, because it is very, very difficult to, given the number of practice units in this country, to cover each and every practice unit. So what we have done was that we have classified all firms into 3 categories. If you are in category 3, I'm sure that you may not be, your number might have not come. So we said we'll do 10% or 15% every year.
Is it obligation on the part of the chartered accountant or the board will take up?
No, I think it is obligatory upon you. I think if you go through the manual, there is a given category 1, category 2, category 3. So see, obligation is on the chartered accountant only, Baba. So that we will have to check whether any of those audits are there, and did you apply to the peer review board accordingly or not. Because the institute does not have any mechanism to come and check.
This is CPS Prakash. Yes, sir. This is CPS Prakash.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. You can speak, sir. You can ask.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, we got statutory branch audits, bank audits.
You are in category 1, sir.
Yeah, my query is related to statutory bank audits, sir. Branch audits.
You are in category 1, sir.
No, not question of category, but while doing the audit, what kind of documentation I have? Because the entire system is automated. The audit procedure, everything is automated. The balance sheet, financial statement is automated. Independent audit report and all their certificates are automated. We rely on like everything, like, okay, we verify their documentation in terms of loans, etc., advances, everything we have verified. But only MOC related changes, if there is any, that will be stated. Like otherwise, there is nothing to state. What kind of documentation we need to maintain as per accounting standard?
See, according to me, I think if you have done some kind of dummy tests or say some kind of software you might have used, you will have to maintain that what work was done. And
No,
this
it is already software was provided by the bank, specific bank and the branch. We are not doing, and it is generated by them only. Like their whatever the system generated reports, it is generated by them only.
See, that is where the issue is, that your central statutory auditor must have tested the softwares. The question is, if I'm saying the system of internal control is acceptable or not. The system of internal control depends upon the way whether your accounting entries are being recorded properly or not. See, my concern is there. So that I test the internal control system. The internal control system is done through the completely automated and through softwares. Central statutory auditor must be testing those softwares that the system is fine. So the point is that you are doing it automatically, but somebody has tested that system. If say they're using Finacle or on the face of it cannot be accepted. Central statutory auditor, because the internal control system through any software, any system, it is generating the entries, and those entries have to be verified. The system has to be verified. Oh, the entry may not be verified. The system has to be verified. In fact, a big firm of auditor will not verify the entries. They will only do very, very small test checking. They will verify the software itself.
During one of my course audit, like, okay, what I found is like the branches, they're issuing the bank guarantees and they're charging the processing fee and interest and putting into a wrong head of account. And that is what, like, okay, future income is also accounted for the current year.
See that first I'll come to you. The first, please remember, see, in the case of say bank audits, branch versus central statutory, see, as per our SA 299, your area is only confined to your scope, because SA 299 does not permit one person to review the work of another person. The work is already divided, it's allocated, and responsibilities are assigned. That's number one. So somebody has done that system. In fact, you must record in your file that the system must have been tested. There is nothing, it has been done by this fellow. Regarding this strong accounting of income, booking of income is definitely a serious point. Of course, you will raise your query in your papers. It will go to central auditor.
LFR and like normal paper also I read it.
No, but it will go to central auditor. No, it is up to the central auditor. He may consider it and he may drop it or he may accept it. But he will do a recording that why it has been dropped or why it has been accepted.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much.
I would like to add Mr. Kapur's point. See, as far as the branch is concerned, whatever is responsible, you are responsible for that balance sheet and P&L account of the branch. You are supposed to have paperwork or at least documentation to prove that you have done sufficient audit and appropriate audit evidence, and so including analytical review procedures. So this is an obligation on our part, irrespective of whether the RBI says or somebody appointing bank says. We need to have paper according to the auditing standards, that how we went about doing the certification of the branch financial statement.
Sir, the future income accounted in the current year is not as per the accounting standard. That is what I want to say. Bank guarantee is for 3 years, and they have taken into account for the entire income, like the interest as well as the processing fee.
See, those are operational aspects of the audit. If you need to communicate with the central auditor, because sometimes what you do at the branch may be, see, for example, when I had done some audit of a branch, I found that particular in the analytical review procedures, I did that average deposits and interest computed. I found the interest which should have been charged is far less than the average deposits during the period. So I found that that particular software was not even run. So I had to write to the central statutory auditor that this is a problem and you need to take care of this. So you need to communicate with central statutory auditor, because sometimes the amount may not be material at the branch level, but it may be cumulatively very big sum when compared to the total profit of the bank. So you have to put it in the communication to the central statutory auditor as part of your findings of the audit of the branch.
Well, sir, taken care of. Information to central statutory auditor is taken care from my end. Thank you so much.
But this Punjab National Bank PNB fraud has become a big.
Since then, like we are concentrating on both LC and BG, like sir. Yes, sir.
This, in the case of this Nirav Modi's matter, see, the Reserve Bank is wondering how the branch audit of that particular branch could have been done. So this has been a big eye opener for even the Reserve Bank of India with reference to certain non-funded based transactions arising out of the branch audit.
That is the concentration area, sir, for both LC and like BG. Like, okay, first, like how many LC and BG you have opened, and like, okay, what is the duration? What is your contingent liability? Are you backed with the total fund, non-fund based backed by guarantee? Those are the things like we documented. And finally, like, okay, the income part of it, like, okay, they are accounting. Anyone else has any question that I would be interested with?
Any other member having any queries, please unmute yourself and you can ask. Members, any more queries, please?
I think we can.
Chairman, may I say the last parting sentence before you propose a vote of thanks?
Yes, sir. Sure, sir. Yes, sir.
Friends, at the end of my talk, I would like to say two things. The first is that a good quality of a professional is that one must understand its own limitations. I'm confident that in today's world, nobody can claim that he knows everything. Whosoever claims that, I think, is befooling himself only. So everybody has got limited knowledge, and we must accept that. So we should not be afraid of anything. So we should always ask questions, howsoever irrelevant it may look like to be. So that's my first request. So never pretend if you don't understand. It's better to ask a question. The second thing I think I have always maintained in my life, may be difficult. We find other things, but I'm sure that this pandemic, I think, I do not know what kind of things it will teach us. But I think let's remember this thing very clearly, that integrity precedes competence. Even if one may be professionally qualified, to me, he is not a professional if he doesn't have integrity. Somebody asked me, I think one of the last lecture which I gave in when I stopped giving December 19 on professional ethics, I gave them a parameter how exactly you can maintain your integrity. And I always tell these 4 lines. According to me, first of all, we must follow the rules, howsoever silly it may look like to be. We have no option but to follow them. We have seen in our own country so many things going ups and downs, the way topsy-turvy. I really do not know what's going to happen, but let's understand, follow the rules. Number 1, in case we are in doubt, I think we must ask our own fair conscience that what exactly should be done. But still in a doubt, I think go to a senior person. Go to a senior person and take his advice. There is nothing wrong in it, because ultimately the decision has to be taken by you. But whenever in doubt, you are not able to make your own fair judgment, I think it is better to reach out to a senior person in your family, in your profession, and seek the advice and follow it. Of course, document it also accordingly, according to me, as the part of working papers. And finally, I think if you're still in dilemma and you're fraught with a difficult question, I think always ask a question to yourself. If something happens, will my family and my relatives, my children will get embarrassed by this particular kind of a situation? I think that's the last question which we have to ask ourselves by doing or by accepting or by doing anything wrong in our lives. With these words, I thank you, each one of you. I think you have been a wonderful audience. It has been a great pleasure to interact with Murli Krishna, Vasudev, and Prashanta and entire team. And I again send my best wishes to the branch for its continued growth. Thank you, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, Vijay Kapur sir and Shakir sir, for accepting our request and addressing our members this evening. So I request Vasudev Murthy garu, our Vice Chairman, to propose vote of thanks. Sir, unmute చేయండి. Vasudev Murthy garu, unmute చేయండి sir. Okay, మాట్లాడండి.
Respected Chairman of the Visakhapatnam branch, Sri Murli Krishna garu, and today's resource person Sri Vijay Kapur garu and B.Sekkizhar garu, really, and other past chairman and webinar participants, and a very good evening. Today we are very fortunate enough having a bundle of knowledge that he has taken this seminar, and regarding Sekkizhar also, that he is very well known. Jagameri Brahman Janjimalani, that Sekkizhar is very, very, very well known to us, and his knowledge also very, whatever we can dig out, still lot of knowledgeable people are today we have chosen by our chairman. Really wonderful, sir. Excellent documentation regarding the, it is very, very important at the juncture, that peer review and documentation, and whatever you added, value added to our people are benefited, sir. Really wonderful. We are very grateful branch and on behalf of all the participants and on behalf of the Visakhapatnam branch, we heartfelt thanks to you, both of you, and excellent presentation you have given, sir. See, Vijay Kapur garu has asked, Kapur garu has asked some questions to ask, because you have cleared all the doubts, sir. That's why they have not asked the questions. So that is there, that we really wonderful, sir, this presentation, and I thank you, both of you. I thank you that all the participants, and I also thank our chairman for giving me this opportunity. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
సుబ్బారావు గారు నమస్కారం సార్. బాగున్నారా? అన్మ్యూట్ చేయండి, అన్మ్యూట్. రావట్లేదు, మీ వాయిస్ రావట్లేదు సుబ్బారావు గారు. వాయిస్ రావట్లేదండి, ఎందుకో వాయిస్ రావట్లేదు. సరే సార్, ఉంటా అండి, నమస్కారం.
సరే ఉంటాను సార్.
ఇప్పుడు వినబడుతుంది, ఇప్పుడు వచ్చింది.
ఉంటారు
అనేప్పటికీ సార్ అంత బాగున్నారా? ఫ్యామిలీ అందరు బాగున్నారా?
ఇంతసేపు ఓపిక కూర్చోబెట్టారు. థ్యాంక్ యూ వెరీ మచ్ ఫర్ నైస్.
అయ్యో మీ అందరూ యాక్టివ్ గా పార్టిసిపేట్ చేస్తే మోటివేషన్ అండి బ్రాంచ్ ప్రోగ్రామ్స్ చేయడానికి.
ఆల్వేస్ ఇంట్రెస్ట్. ఏదో నేర్చుకుంటాం కదా. ప్లీజ్ కంటిన్యూ యువర్ గుడ్ వర్క్.
థ్యాంక్ యూ సార్, థ్యాంక్ యూ.